Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Up North Impersonal, where I speak with Canadian talent and hear their stories. Our guest today, as with all my guests I've spoken to, is a pretty big deal. An accomplished actor, comedian, TV producer, a writer for cartoons, anime, award shows, magazines, his own books, and get this! He was a driving force behind some of YTV's most memorable years, alongside many other works in Canadian TV. As a result of that, he has been very influential in several aspects of my career and general upbringing. He's been here, he's been there, he's been everywhere. It's Marcel St. Pierre.
Wow. That's
not bad, right?
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's a great intro.
Yeah. I recited that for a little while and was like, I'm sure he'll appreciate the clever wordplay with the here, everywhere. Let's give it a shot.
Yes, for sure. Yes. And I hope your upbringing was everything you wanted it to be. That's a lot to live up to.
Definitely. Like, even in retrospect, like, I knew it was pretty good growing up, but yeah, even in retrospect, it's like, man, I hear all, like, my American friends talk about the stuff that they grew up watching, and I think to myself, right, I wouldn't change any of that for the world because of what you and a lot of your colleagues did with various channels in Canada.
Right on. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah, I sort of grew up the same way, too, just, like, glued to the TV and watching some PBS stuff, of course, you know, Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, but also all the good old school Canadian stuff, you know, Mr. Dress Up and, all the after school programs that they had, they just kept changing. Every couple of years they would just rotate, you know. I think my first TV writing credit that I call it was actually from a PBS show called Zoom. I sent in a joke. It was just a knock-knock joke. And they read it on air and stated my name, although they mispronounced it, which was fine. I was so excited. And then they sent me, it was like a postcard a little bit later, a thank you postcard with instructions on how to make a kite, I think, which is also real fun. I think I tried it. It didn't work out really well, but yeah, but that sort of connection that you were able to have, I mean, we have it today with influencers online and stuff like this. But it was the same thing, but it just blew my mind to get something from the show that I was watching on TV. So, yeah, definitely gave my mind a shake and went, oh, wow, these are real people. They're actually listening to me, you know, so it was amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I think about, what was it? When I watched like TVO Kids when I was younger and they would talk about like sending in mail to the station. I remember my first postal codes. That's where I learned my first postal codes. It was like Station Q, Toronto, Ontario, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't know how mailing stuff would work, so I sent in like fan art of stuff, and I tried one time to put it through the VHS, and I thought maybe if I put this through the tape thing, it'll get to the guys. But I was like, even at 4 years old, I was like, I should probably ask my mother to see if this is how it's done. So
is this?
Yeah, it's like, is this how you do it? No.
No. Is this the correct procedure? Yes, I want the end result to be satisfying. So let me know if I'm making a mistake here. Wise choice.
Yeah. Especially since the VHS was like my lifeline. So yeah, it's like I didn't want to mess up the VCR if I didn't have to.
For sure. Now, what was on VHS for you? Like, what were you getting? Stuff you were watching and taping because you knew you wanted to watch it again? Or was it like hand-me-down stuff from friends and relatives and things like that?
So it was sort of like a crazy mix of everything. Like, especially when I was like in my earliest days, you had like, you know, your educational stuff, like your Barneys and things like that, stuff for kids and things like that. But, you know, I got bit by like the TV media bug at a really young age, and I had my mom record stuff for me even before I could really even start doing it myself. Like, my oldest videotape is from TVO Kids back in the day, and it was like 98, 99. So when I was like 3 years old, that's when I was just, mom was like, okay, here's some Pingu stuff and the stuff from the crawl space on TVO, and I have like Christmas stuff from like 2001 when all the Christmas specials would air on YTV. And yeah, but a lot of my stuff, if it wasn't like, you know, the usual stuff that was coming out at the time, it was a lot of just recording off of TV and mainly YTV stuff.
Amazing. Very cool. So, what I guess makes you so enamored of Canadian stuff that you have devoted all this time to hunting down people such as myself to go, let's talk about this?
Oh yeah, you have no idea. I have a friend of mine who in like the middle of like Saskatchewan, and we have bonded over our shared love over YTV stuff. Like we have just become we became fast friends after like we realized like, oh, we like this stuff on YTV. He'd been recording stuff for a lot longer than I had, but
right.
Man, like I would send my stuff to his channel so he could upload it there, and we're basically, me and him and maybe a couple of other folks, we're like responsible for archiving a lot of stuff from like the mid 2000s and things like that, and just making sure that people don't forget this stuff because it's really cool, you know?
That's fun. Yeah, when you find you have a passion for a particular genre or anything you can nerd out over, any kind of content that may or may not be kept. Myself, I recorded episode after episode of Saturday Night Live on VHS. I had boxes and boxes of VHS tapes that have followed me around to this very day. A buddy of mine is responsible for a lot of the David Letterman stuff that you'll find online.
Wow.
Because he just has never gotten over it. Yeah, I was blown away. He's always releasing clips, and it's fun to see. Sometimes he'll be like, oh, well, they took that one down. It's okay. I'll post it again in a couple of weeks. He's always ready. So that's nice. Yeah, there are archivists like ourselves that, you know, get into holding these things. And it's important, too, because you can't take it for granted that the actual producers of the show or the networks that originally, you know, paid for the show are interested in keeping it. They're businesses, and they move forward, and the people who control the networks change, and so their priorities change. Monty Python, famously, there was a show before Monty Python called At Last, the 1948 Show, which a lot of people remembered because it was an after-school show, but it was very much like Monty Python, and a couple of the Pythons, Michael Palin and I think Terry Jones, worked on it, and they were, of course, you know, fantastic writers. But the show was lost for years. People remembered it, and BBC kept on saying, well, we don't have it. Well, we think it may have been purged at one point. We didn't keep it. We didn't keep the master tapes. We needed the tapes, so they would tape over the master tapes. Luckily, the show does exist because someone, if I'm getting my story straight, someone will go to the internet and correct me, but someone in Scandinavia somewhere, perhaps Sweden, found recordings of it in their garage because their dad or uncle had worked at the TV station in Sweden that had run it. Mm-hmm. And so they had copies of it and were able to, I think it was Terry Jones himself who bought the tapes from the person because they wanted to remaster the show. So it was just, you know, imagine something you worked on that you love that was missing for decades, and then you go, oh my God, someone's got it in their garage? Yes, any money. Mm-hmm. I'll pay for it for sure. And now the rest of the world has it. It's out on DVD now because those guys have found it. And there was in fact, I think, one episode that was not found for several years. But then they found it and then re-released the DVD again with the missing episode. Wow. So, yeah, again, I hope all that is sort of correct because someone listening will correct me and get all the facts straight. But that's what I remember. So I'm all about hold on to your recorded media, even if it's slightly pirated, because someone somewhere sometime will be interested in seeing it and finding it. And it's part of our history, right?
Mm-hmm. That does actually remind me, not to get too off topic, but that does remind me of another show. There was like an anime in like the 70s or something called like The Bush Baby, and TVO used to air it back in like the 80s or something, and people were like,
okay,
yeah, it just disappeared. And then they were like, where is it? And it's like, TVO's like, we don't have it. But then the parents of the kids who recorded it, the parents recorded all the episodes on tape for that exact reason, because they loved the show and they wanted to have a copy when the kids grew up later in life. So the parents were like way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was talking about Saturday Night Live a little bit later. Lorne Michaels used to work at CBC. And he created a show called the Lorne and Hart Super Terrific Hour. You're probably familiar with it, or maybe not.
Not at all.
You will be after this.
Oh,
anyway,
definitely.
It was kind of the precursor of Saturday Night Live. The format was the same thing: comedy sketches with musical acts. According to the internet, there's like 6 episodes. And when I worked at CBC, I went to the library and I asked them to pull a copy of it for me. And I wanted to see all the specials, right? There were like 6 specials. There were only 2 tapes or 2 entries. There were numbers for all the episodes, but the only ones I could get were 2. And as it turns out, the 2 were actually half of 1 episode. So I was only ever able to put in 1 episode together. Now, I'm sure Lorne Michaels has copies of those shows themselves. You know, they're very rough. It's the 70s. It's, you know, there was a lot of tightening to the format to be done. But talking to CBC, you know, archivists, where are these tapes? They're like, I don't know. These are the numbers we have. They might be in storage. This is all we can give you right now, unless somebody, you know, basically has the time and the money for us to spend really researching where they've gone. We can't assume that we own them.
Oh.
Yeah. So you're doing important work, is what I'm getting at.
Thank you. I have official seal of approval. That feels good.
Seal of approval from a fellow person who collects way too much media. Yeah.
Kindred spirits.
Yes, that's right. So, absolutely.
So we have talked a little bit about how, well, you did talk about some of like, actually, no, I don't think we talked about that, but I wanted to know like how you got started in your career and your inspirations in forms of all aspects, like acting, editing, writing, anything you can think of.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like you, watching a lot of TV, encyclopedic knowledge of TV shows that were way older than I was, you know, and no real thought to having a career in television. I grew up in New Brunswick, and I actually got a teaching degree. So I was looking for a teaching job, actually. I moved to Toronto, and I just had a bug to perform a little bit. So I thought, I'm going to take a gap year and hold off on this teaching. It's there. Let's see what else I can do. So I took an improv class. Started performing. Through that, I met someone who was doing basically a short-term job as an intern, I think, at YTV, and was like, "You'd be perfect for this. You should come and just do a gig. You know, I need a little bit of extra money." And I said, "Sure, I'll go do it." So I got a job as a researcher at YTV on the YTV Achievement Awards. Ooh. So I was basically researching news stories about kids that were doing fantastic things, trying to slot them into different categories that we had, and trying to get them to apply to the awards. So I did that 1 year. By the end of that year, and I wrote a lot of press releases too, and also the bios for the kids, because my majors were English and history. So research, writing, I love doing all that kind of stuff. And the producer of the show, Joanne Jackson, at the end of the first year said, "You're a really good writer. Have you ever considered, writing for television? Would you like to be one of the writers on the show next year?" And I was like, "Yes, please." And from that, it sort of paved the way for everything else. That first gig from someone who recognized sort of the talent and the passion in me for something, kind of was like, yeah, here's a job. And I've kind of never looked back. I've never been back to teaching. I've always managed to find something, you know, just the very next thing. Working in Canadian show business is a lot like that. It's just gig to gig, right? But I was fortunate enough with that first thing, and I always really, even though I went away and came back to YTV, I always really appreciated the fact that in the day, this is about 95, I guess, YTV for me was really high school television or TV high school. I just really learned the ropes just by hanging out, watching people. All my colleagues were all really easygoing about, oh, come here, be a puppet in this scene right now. Why don't you write some hits for, you know, PJ Phil or Snit to say. Even on days I wasn't working, I would just kind of hang out in the puppet room with the Fuzzpaws and just see how puppets were made and hang out. And so one thing led to another. I was just, you know, my schedule was open. I was open-minded, and everybody seemed to have faith in my abilities, and I kept on getting hired for short things. So, yep, tickety-boo, one thing leads to the next thing, and then a career happens.
Yeah, it's crazy how those things happen.
Yeah, not at all what I had thought. I didn't at all think of it. All I thought was, by taking the improv class, was that, well, I want to do comedy. The improv will help me write better stand-up material, and we'll see what else happens. You know, and turns out a lot.
Yeah, not bad. So on that topic as well, YTV stuff and whatnot, I want to know, take me through the process of making a promo for YTV from conception to completion.
Yeah. So from working in production, I also then got to know the people that were in the promo producing end of the business, and got invited to help them out on things. So I mean, from start to finish, basically what happens is, hey, we have a TV show, it needs to be promoted. So it could be anything from taking a trailer that the producers have already put together and chopping it down into from 2 minutes to a 30-minute spot, or a 30-second spot, or 15 seconds, or 10, or 7, or 5 seconds. Sometimes it's just a blip. And sometimes you actually have to start from scratch. So usually they would tell us, try to watch at least, if we have them, 6 episodes of the show, and then write a promo from that. So you would just grab the best sound bites, try to tell the story. If it's a new show, try to tell the story of what the show is, you know, in 30 seconds or less. And sometimes we were very successful. Sometimes we weren't, but we were always having fun with them. You've seen a lot of the old ones during the Keep It Weird campaign. Late 90s, about 98, I guess, is when the Keep It Weird campaign would have started. A lot of those, the mandate was not even to make sense. The mandate was to just be as entertaining as possible. And the thought being that if someone goes, what did I just see? They'll be interested in going to see the show, right? So it didn't really matter. Yeah. So to get back really, without rambling too much, to your question, what goes into writing a promo? You need to watch the show. You need to just figure out how in 30 seconds can I tell the story to someone else of what this show is, with an eye to making them be so excited about it that they have to watch it.
Definitely. And I've seen YTV promos from 98 all the way up to present day as well. So it's been an interesting evolution to see how some things are a little more, have more creative liberty. Other things are more just stick to the facts. But Yeah, when you bring up promos that sometimes that have nothing to do with the show at all, one of the first ones I think of, probably one of the earliest I remember personally seeing, was one of yours. What if Dragon Ball Z was an opera?
What if Dragon Ball Z was an opera? A bad idea.
And that was the first time I was just like, even as a child, I was like, I didn't get into Dragon Ball Z until much later in life, but
right.
I can imagine lots of people watching that and just thinking, what does this have to do with Dragon Ball Z? And I know there are some people out there who, like, they have differing opinions on how YTV promoted shows and things like that. But I'm in the camp of, they were just having fun. I don't care. This is hilarious. If you gave me the power to do whatever I wanted, just carte blanche, I'd be like, let's just get, for lack of a better word, weird with it.
We really did get weird with it. And that's one of the ones. Now, I love being surprised by things, and I love when things are just odd. And to me, that was also a show where we had the I guess the bandwidth to be able to do that, because people generally knew the show. It was, I think, 2 or 3 seasons in at that point. Yeah. So they were way more willing to allow us to go a bit insane at that point. Just even Marvel today has a whole TV series called What If, which is like, let's just take our characters. What if Thor was a frog? Sure, run with it. So that was what I did with that, was what if Dragon Ball Z was an opera? And because the anime itself can be cut such that you can make the lip flap to anything, I was like, okay, I could have anything. I could put in any dialogue I want in there. There was another one that I did, which was, what if Pikachu had different catchphrases?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Did you know in the early days, Pikachu couldn't remember his lines? Learn your lines!
What's his name?
Say Pikachu. Pikachu! Mojo. Cut! Tweety could do this.
Wrong line, Pokemoron! He also hates hugs. Pokemon, today at 3:30!
It was just a repeat of Pikachu jumping off of a tree with his lips flapping, where we know as fans, oh, he's saying Pika, And I was like having him say Yabba Dabba Doo.
Yabba Dabba Doo, Woody Woodpecker, Mojo Jojo from Powerpuff Girls. That was another one that I also remember, and I also have on tape one of the earliest promos I recorded. And as a 3-year-old, or 4 or 5, around that age, that blew my mind, seeing all those promos like clash with each other. It's like, no, Pikachu is actually saying Yabba Dabba Doo from the Flintstones. He says Narf from Pinky and the Brain. This is messing with my mind right now. This is insane.
You remember it even better than I do. That's great.
Dude, I know these YTV promos like the back of my hand, because anybody who knows me well enough knows that I have recited so many promos from over the years, like word for word. I'm just trying to think of like one off the top of my head. Let's see. Let's see. There's so many to pick from. I know I'm running.
It's on the tip of your
here.
tongue there.
Yeah, that's what it's like. I could do this one. I could do that one. I could do this one. There was one. Okay, here's one off the top of my head. This is from Pokemon Saturdays back in 2007. I don't know if you did this one, but it was just like the YTV voice guy, Eddie Glenn, and he was rapping and talking about like a promo stuff happening in April. And it went like, It goes a little something like this, where he goes, when I say Saturday, you say Pokemon. Saturdays, and then it cuts to like anime footage. Saturdays, Pokemon. When I say April, you say Pokemon. April, Pokemon. April, Pokemon. And when I say that each Saturday in April, you get 2 brand new Pokemon episodes plus a feature-length Pokemon movie, topped off by the Canadian premiere of Pokemon 7, Destiny Deoxys on Saturday, April 28th, you say, and then there was silence, and then there's some cute little Pokemon making noises in the background, and he's like, oh, yeah, close enough. Rock on, freaky bunnies. I could go on all day about this kind of stuff. But you have no idea. Uh-huh.
That wasn't one of mine, but that sounds very much, that was still 2007. They were still, I think that we were definitely out of the keep it weird phase, but there was still, every so often, you were getting away with something, because properties were well known, so it didn't really matter what the messaging in the promo was, as long as you weren't making the show look bad. And I think we got away too with a lot more stuff too, because at that point, for sure, the production companies were leaving us alone. So that's amazing. It's locked right in there. It gets to you.
And I hadn't seen that promo in years until somebody uploaded a short version, a 15-second promo, maybe like a few months ago. And I had talked about that promo in a video I did years ago, and people were like, hey, this guy's not crazy. This thing actually did exist.
It exists. It exists. No, it's true. Yeah, these things, it's very funny. Sometimes you forget where your keys are, but you can remember to recite that promo that you heard 20 years ago.
Yeah, wild. No, it's like, it's, I mean, I've used it as a valuable asset now. People used to think it was a problem.
No, you exactly go with what you know. Some people would tell us sometimes when we talk about it, they'll say, like, I do get approached once in a while from fans on YouTube, who are looking at the promos and asking me if I wrote this one or I wrote that one, and relating. They're like, sometimes the promos were better than the shows. We watched YTV because it was a whole environment, and there wasn't a lot else going on too. Maybe YTV was the one kid-friendly channel that you had at your house that your parents would let you watch all the time. So they got inundated with it as soon as they got back home after school.
Oh, totally. There was like a period.
No, go ahead. There was a period.
Oh, I was just going to say there was a period of time where, like, from 2002 to 2005, I only had YTV, like, our cable package. We just didn't get Teletoon, and that did gut me for a bit, but I was okay with YTV for, like, 3 years, but yeah.
Yep. Well, Teletoon was also one of the networks I got to work on as well, which had a sort of a similar vein depending on the programming block. Some of them we were able to be a little bit more fun with, like Teletoon at night was all the Adult Swim programming, so you could definitely be a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, a little racier with that kind of stuff. They tried various different blocks on YTV as well. There was an After Dark one, I think, which was like spookier shows.
And the Dark Corner.
Dark Corner, that's what it was. Exactly, yeah. My colleague Wade Sherman worked on that one.
Ooh.
It was great. There was a whole sort of a bullpen of us. There was like 6 or 7 of us producers all doing stuff and all showing each other material and asking each other. Like, sometimes you'd get stumped and you're like, I've done 3, Metabot spots already. I have absolutely no idea how to make this interesting or different from before. And then invariably somebody would go, make it, pretend it's a hospital drama, and you'd be like, that's brilliant. Or sometimes you'd go, I have no idea what that means, and it wouldn't work for you,
Run like a chicken!
Did you just say run like a...
We're from Concerned Chickens for Chicken Society, and we want Metabots off the air.
I figure you're chicken.
Metabots isn't feather-friendly.
He called you chicken?
Join Wings and clean up this foul show.
I never pegged you as a chicken.
Demand positive chicken role models.
Well, since you put it that way...
That's a sparrow. Should have kept our beaks closed. Metabots, Saturdays at 8:30 in Vortex.
But definitely my stuff was always, I love non sequiturs. I love being goofy. I love, making genres fight it out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could do voice substitution, oh boy, that was great.
Ooh,
but sometimes
yeah.
we were definitely told, no, you may not do that. The producers have actually told us they saw the spot. They don't want us to do it again. The current climate, this started before the pandemic, maybe 2018 or 19. The American producers giving us shows got a bit particular about what we could and couldn't do with their material. I cut a spot for Lego Batman that we loved. My creative director loved it. We put it to air, and we were told, or we were asked by the marketing people, did you run this by Warner Brothers? Because you're supposed to. And I didn't have to deal with that. That was my creative director's decision, and he sort of didn't answer the question, and it was a little bit of a let's try to get forgiveness instead of permission. But apparently that promo got looked at very intensely by Warner Brothers, and they were concerned because when they do a 2-minute promo, those are approved shots that they go, anybody can see this and it doesn't give away the movie. We made the movie, so we trust our promo people before we trust promo people from a different country even, right?
The Caped Crusader, the Dark Knight. He has many names, but he's still... Batman! Whoa!
You're darn right. Whoa, whoa.
But who is Batman really?
I'm Batman. That's my motto. Copyright Batman.
Oh, I thought you were Bruce Wayne.
Nope. I'm a night-stalking, crime-fighting vigilante and a heavy metal rapping machine.
I'm Batman. I'm awesome. I got a 9-pack.
Big Fun Movies presents the Lego Batman movie, September 1st at 6 on YTV.
So they looked at it, and apparently the word got back that they actually quite liked it. They were like, okay, it's good. There are shots we didn't approve that should be embargoed, but we will allow this one. However, you can't do that anymore. You need to show us the spots going forward. And I think for about a year and a half or 2 years, it was maybe 50-50. We would show half of them and then still try to get forgiveness instead of permission. But they finally put an end to it completely with HBO Max. All these companies in the U.S. sort of folding into one or two big conglomerates, so they have a lot more control. And having a good relationship with the production companies is way more important than allowing your producers to do whatever creative that they want, right? So we had to pick and choose, and I still got projects that I had free reign, but they were definitely the exception rather than the rule towards the end of my doing promos at YTV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on that note as well, you already talked about some guidelines and things that people crack down on that might have been okay in the past. Were there any promos you made for yourselves that were not supposed to go to air at all? Because I think I've seen a few, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Not at YTV. At YTV, there was one spot it was not improper. It was just a letter, somebody sending in a letter and feeling outraged about what had been said in the spot, and it was for Powerpuff Girls, and it was Eddie's voice off the top saying, "There's nothing better than coming home after school and reading a book." Great. And then Mojo Jojo looks into camera and says, "That is a misconception." And then we talk about how it's much better to watch the Powerpuff Girls, right? And the rest of the spot. Well, we got a letter, an angry letter from somebody somewhere who was like, "How dare YTV promote illiteracy?" That's what they took away from it. So I get a call from viewer relations. "Marcel, we have a promo that you produced that we need to talk about." So we had to go in and look at the promo. I brought the tape. Now, the lady from viewer relations, I've known for years. She was such a sweetheart and had a great sense of humor. And, of course, was just rolling her eyes going, "Sigh, there's nothing wrong with this promo, but I'm afraid you're going to have to change it." Because we've gotten a complaint. So yeah, sometimes that would happen. So that there are a couple of spots that I have in my own personal collection that are sort of producers' cuts versus, fixes or what went to air after having notes be given. For a while, our boss, the head of the department, our creative director, did not want us doing musical numbers anymore, because I'm sick to death of hearing songs and jingles. No more. There's a moratorium. So, of course, we would keep trying to push one in every so often. And then after a year or two, she sort of gave up. But it was like, as soon as they say, don't do that, that's when you really want to do it, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Just watch me.
Just watch me.
There is like... Oh, I was just going to say, there is a promo. There's like 2 promos that I found on somebody's Vimeo page or whatever. They're in very crisp quality, like they just came off of the assembly line or whatever. There's one for Snagglepuss, and basically they were like showing off all their different anime on YTVs, like from the creators, it's like coming straight from Japan, from the guys who brought you Pokemon and Digimon and Dragon Ball Z comes Japan's latest hit, Snagglepuss, and the guy, the YTV voice guy does some impressions of Snagglepuss using an exaggerated accent of sorts. And then by the end of the promo, he goes, okay, he's not from Japan, but it's still good television. And I don't think that ever made it to air. I don't know if you had anything to do with that.
No, that's a news flash to me. You saw how high my eyebrows went up. Yes. No, I don't think I would have even presented that one back in the day, but certainly, yeah.
No.
Certainly that's a no-go.
That seems like something that would just be made for some guy who's like, what if we just did this and don't show it to anybody?
Well, mores change, and, for instance, I do teach improv, and I used to teach what is called a gibberish game, which is you're supposed to just talk gibberish so that the most important thing that you're doing is relating things in body language and intention to your scene partners. But maybe about 15 years ago, I started getting a bit of feedback from students that they were very uncomfortable doing it because sometimes their accents would sound like, am I making fun of someone from a different area in the world? And quite right, so I no longer teach it. There's many other ways to be able to teach that sort of thing. Yeah, so
for sure.
We roll with the punches and we learn as society changes. Exactly.
There was another one, a Sailor Moon one, where they were talking about how Japan, a lot of anime have strobing light effects, where it's like, and they just show like this huge strobing light, and it's like, this is a test to see if you can watch Japanese animation because of intense strobing effects. We're just making sure that this is a test. And then at the end, it's like, okay, can you see this number 4? Great, you passed the test, and now you can get this secret information. And it shows Sailor Moon, new time, blah blah blah. And I was like, man, this couldn't have made it to air either, because this would have taken me out with those flashing lights.
Oh, are you sensitive to that kind of thing? Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm an epileptic at all, but no, super fast flashing lights will still make me go like, oh, wow, okay, I gotta, sit back.
Yeah, quick edits, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that one made it to air either, but I think that one was just like a joke, because I can assume it would probably get some complaints as well. If Powerpuff Media Literacy got a complaint, I can imagine that would get at least 2.
At least two, and hopefully, someone didn't watch it and actually have a for real seizure. Yeah, sure.
I've never seen that promo, so I don't. Again, it's super crisp quality. I haven't seen it anywhere else, so I think it was just off of someone's
I would be so interested to know who wrote it. I mean, I know all the guys from that time period, right? It definitely was not me. It doesn't sound like one of mine, but yeah, it could have been. It could have been. Yeah, I have a couple of people that I think it could have been. Yeah.
Yeah, you could track them down.
Just ask. Yeah, who got the strobe effect complaint, guys?
Yeah, who got the snaggle? Who? Which one of you tricksters did the Snagglepuss one?
Who did the Snagglepuss strobe? Hilarious. Yeah.
So now on to another YTV story. Let's see. I wanted to talk about the unlucky caveman for a little bit.
Yes.
Because I remember I might be one of the few people, me and my brother, we might be some of the few people out there to remember and relish unlucky caveman. He try leave cave, but he unlucky caveman. But
it writes itself.
I want to know, what was the thought process behind this? Where did the conception come? Who gave you the okay? All that stuff.
Yeah. Well, that was one of a collection of shorts that our department got commissioned to make for the Zone. The Zone, they needed a little bit of help in terms of just coming up with more content. They were trying something new. It was around the time that YouTube really took off, so they were looking to try to get stuff that they might do second runs after it was aired online somewhere, whether that was on YTV.com or on YouTube. They weren't sure, but they just wanted little web series, basically, ideas. So we, over a couple of weeks, we just pitched idea after idea to the Zone people from our department. And then, they whittled it down, and Unlucky Caveman was one of the ones that they really, really liked. And I just wanted something, I was just following the parameters I was given, which is something repeatable, something that once we've done the first setup, we can knock off a bunch of them. Because if you can do one, why can't you do 50? Right? We need to get a lot of them, and if it's successful, it should work. So that's why I came up with that concept. Now, I'm going to go way back in time, and you probably know it because you're such a fan of Canadian TV, but do you know the hilarious House of Frightenstein?
I do know that. I haven't seen much of it, but I am aware of the name. Yeah.
Worth going back to look at it, because that was also a WTF, did I just see kind of a show for people in, I think, 1971 is when it first came out.
Yeah.
And it was a very psychedelic show, and there were lots of little running bits that were in it. It was very much like a kid's version of Laugh-In, which is another show that, again, it's like, we're moving so fast here, we're just throwing jokes at you. And I thought to myself, if I was to create a segment that would go in a show like that, what could it be? Now, there was a bit in that show that was just a gorilla that would come out, and he would always be hit in the head with a ball. And then he would fall down. That was the joke. And I always found it hilarious because the music in it was very, very, ominous, and it's a man in a gorilla suit, and the gorilla suit is hilarious. And so they're trying to make it really scary, and then he always falls down in a creative way, and it's very funny. So I just sort of had that in mind as an homage when I started writing Unlucky Caveman. And that was the same thing. Now I'm like, let's have a backstory for this guy instead of just coming out and being hit with something. Why? Well, he's trying to leave his cave. He has caveman things to do, and he's unlucky. He's just unlucky. Something always prevents him. He has to go back in the cave because he's been hurt, or one of them I actually transporter beamed him out and then back in. It's like, where did he go? He's just unlucky, man. We just don't know. So that was the whole concept there, really. It was a 2 or 3 line concept of, this is what it will be. And he'll look goofy and he'll look lovable. We're like, kids love cavemen. They'll love the physical comedy. We just need to get an actor who can do shtick, right? So we built the cave in the studio. We had a green screen so that we could do a really nice background, as you saw, and that was it. And then we just ran with it, and I wrote, I think, 35 or 36 scenarios. I maybe ended up getting 30 or 40 episodes out of it, because some of them, alternate takes equaled, oh, that's different enough that I can make a different episode out of that one.
Right.
They were 2 or 3 minutes long, if even that long. And then I just wrote this jingle for it, which was me. It was me singing it, actually. I'm going, what's the caveman singing about? He's got to tell us about his day. So it was a little bit of a Saturday Night Live sketch where it's like, it's a spoof on a sitcom. Here's the opening and here's the closing number, which, were little earworms. People were singing it around the office. And
look at him. He unlucky caveman. He try leave cave, but he unlucky caveman. Cha-cha-cha.
I loved it. I had such a blast. But we shot all of them in one day.
All of them in one day.
All of them in one day. One long 8-hour day. Yeah. We saved the very last one was the one where he gets hit by a bucket of water. And we saved that one to the very end of the day because we knew, like, he's not got time to go back into makeup.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah. And that was... I hired the amazing actor, is a Second City alumnus. He's been on Baroness Von Sketch Show. Chris Siddiqui is the man who played the Unlucky Caveman. And he actually guest hosted, not The Zone, but whatever, I think Crunch. I think he got the guest host Crunch for a while.
Host, really?
And they were they really enjoyed his work at YTV because he's such an amazingly affable, lovable man in real life that they tried real hard to work him into a bunch of stuff. So he did a bunch of stuff for YTV back and forth, yeah. But that's, again, how YTV was back in the day when we were still back in Liberty Village. Was that people were like, oh, this person's great. We love them. Let's find stuff for them to do.
Right.
So I was so happy to hear that other people were independently calling him. They'd ask me, who was that guy? And I'm like, this is his contact info. Here's his agent. Call him. Yes, get him to work. And so he did. He actually, through that, he ended up being the voice of CMT.
Really?
For a couple of years, yeah. Remember when CMT was really heavy on the comedy?
Let's see, because
Maybe not.
I mainly knew them from country music. But
from maybe to about 2000, well, no, earlier than that. Yeah, from about 2006 to 2010, even beyond that, they really, really ran a lot of comedies like Tim Allen and Reba McEntire, and
they still do, yeah.
And they still do. They still run those things. Anyway, Chris started, I think, as the voice of that block, the comedy block, but then they just gave him the whole network. So he did that for quite a few years.
Wow. Maybe I can find some promos and hear that stuff because, I really loved his work.
Well, circle back to me at some point and I'll see if I have, because I did cut some CMT promos, but I don't recall if I actually got to work with Chris. It might have been after, but who knows? Once you start digging through media, you just find it. We'll see. But that's kind of the story of excuse me, Unlucky Caveman right there. And the graphics were done by the in-house graphics department at YTV. Again, amazingly talented man, Vince Robles, who was always at YTV from the time I was there. Just this quiet guy behind his keyboard, being incredibly brilliant and directing a team of other brilliant designers, coming up with all kinds of stuff. And I just showed him a picture of what Chris is going to look like and the finished song, and he said, leave it with me. And he animated the opening sequence and chose the graphics for it. Yeah, exactly.
We're doing the cha-cha. For people listening, we're doing the cha-cha-cha thing. You can find it.
The cha-cha-cha.
Boop-be-doop, he unlucky caveman, cha-cha-cha.
He literally just took the shots and animated between the still photographs that we had. Yeah. And the piece of music I used, we had access to a library. It was the APM library, which I guess they paid a flat rate, I guess. And so I could just go in, and as long as I had a couple hours to kill, I would just go and audition music, just listen to music. And I found just this little cha-cha-cha number spoke to me, and I went, that's ridiculous, so I have to use it, obviously. and then I don't know how early or later in the process that it just struck me that, oh, it's got to be the caveman singing the song. Like, it's got to be that broken English of just learning words, and a bit of a guttural voice to it. So, yeah. I may have been sourcing a little bit of an old Hanna-Barbera character called Captain Caveman as well. That might have been in there.
I can see that.
That might have been in there. Yeah. Well, you gotta borrow and steal and pay homage to whatever little things that have inspired you as an artist, and a writer, and that comes out in your work, right? And for someone else, it's new, but for you, that's why sometimes it is actually really great to hear people go, "Oh my God, I love that specific thing," and you're like, I didn't even think that much of it because it was just all ideas I had, and I'm just, kind of just sticking layers together of stuff that I know where the influence is coming from, but it does create something new and something fun, and that's the ideal. Like, it's amazing to me to hear, because I grew up with a brother as well, and we dug some of the same stuff as well together, and I know that I can say things to him that he'll know where the catchphrase comes from.
Yep.
And I love that you have that with your brother with Unlucky Caveman.
Oh yeah, just with various promos and things like that. It's like we have our own secret language where we'll say a thing and it's like, oh, I know what you're saying, but if anybody else would be like, I don't know what these guys are talking about. But yeah, especially with YTV promos. It's
like twins having a secret language. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. Totally.
It's amazing.
And there was, I sent you the clip earlier, maybe a week ago, and it's like when I saw that there was a promo for America's Funniest Home Videos in 2013, and they used the Unlucky Caveman, and I remember being, I almost came out, I jumped out of my seat and was like, is that the Unlucky Caveman? What is this? So was that as much of a surprise to you? Did you have anything to do with that promo?
Well, when you sent me the note about it, I asked you, I was like, no, that's a new one for me. What is that? And when I looked at it, I know what happened was basically someone somewhere in the promo department was familiar with the Unlucky Caveman and were like, America's Funniest Videos, what's that about? Well, the hit for the show is literally, it's about people taking hits and falling down, physical comedy, physical shtick. And they probably were like, I got to do this promo. What's a good way to do it? Oh, let's show this caveman falling down. And they toasted the video in a bit and made it look like,
vintage.
Really rickety.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was like, oh, fantastic. That's what's called, as I spoke before, repurposing old material to make something new, right?
Yeah.
And because YTV or Corus Entertainment owns that footage, they have a right to, do with it what they will, develop it into something new as time goes on. And to me, that was like I was chuffed to see that someone had gone back to that and remembered it for that many years and was like, oh, we're reusing that.
Yeah.
And what's funny too is, again, Chris Dickey was the Unlucky Caveman in a promo for America's Funniest Home Videos on CMT, which was the network he was voicing.
Oh, he was voicing a promo for AFV on CMT at around the same time, maybe?
He might not have voiced that one. I'd have to go back and look at it again. But yeah, I'm just going, oh man, it's such a small community here in Canada.
It all comes back.
We all cross paths. It all comes back. Yeah.
I was like, seeing it in 2013, because Unlucky Caveman, I was still in still in grade school at the time. And then, I was in middle school around that time. And then, that was 2008. And then 2013, it was like almost about to go to college. And just to see the Unlucky Caveman for like 10 seconds, like, I'm not losing my mind here. They are using Unlucky Caveman. That's wild. And I even showed my brother the promo, like, when we saw it back then. And he was like, wait a minute. That's the Unlucky. That's the Caveman.
I love it. A lot of people say sometimes too, if by my work I have reached but one person, that'll be worth it. And I truly feel that at this moment. I'm like, oh, well, that was worth it then.
Totally.
That's why we're having this conversation today. Was once upon a time I created a really, really silly web series on a caveman who is unlucky.
And someone just had to pick your brain about it, because it's like, if I don't do it, who will?
And it's not the first time in my career that people also would have said, here's a bunch of tape, make something from this.
Yeah.
At CBC, again, the show I worked on 2 shows. I worked on the Morgan Waters show, and I worked on The X. And The X had segments. One of the segments I created was something called Studio Zoo. And we had a live element of it, which was that somebody would bring in an animal to the studio for the hosts to interact with. But the opening and closing segments of it I created by using old archival footage of zoos from across Canada, like black and white footage of monkeys swinging. And we used big band music as the source music, and I wrote lyrics to that and got the voiceover guy to do that. And they would ask us to do that all the time. They were like, here's some old footage we didn't use from these. Go look through it, find something, and make things happen.
We wanted your socks, and you answered the call. By plane, train, and automobile, your single socks kept coming from far and wide, from every corner of this great land of ours. It's Sock Drop 2004. And now, from the 10th floor of the CBC Broadcast Center in Toronto, the hosts of The X, Sally and Anthony.
Thanks, voice man.
So we would repurpose things all the time. We created a series of just shorts called And Now. So it would be like, and now Anne Hathaway clears her throat. And it would be Anne Hathaway just like coughing up a hairball because it was a dry studio. Okay. And that was Anne Hathaway doing this thing. And yeah, we did it so much that we actually got in a bit of trouble with some of the talent bookers who would book this talent for us, because they'd be like, it wasn't Anne Hathaway, but for instance, they might go like, oh, such and such a talent saw the bit that you created, didn't give you permission to use outtakes, and is angry, so now we're not booking talent for you. Mm-hmm. So we got into trouble that way with our talent bookers, but we're like, hey man, we're just trying to fill minutes. We're doing whatever we can with whatever we've got. Yeah. Most talent, we're pretty good with it. I did get one of the women from the Rankin family, a singer, came up to me and was like, oh, what are you filming here? We were like, oh, it's it's The X. It's an after school show for kids. Oh, I've seen that. My nephew likes it. Yes. She goes, it's like the Daily Show, but for kids. You're very smart, but also very naughty. I'm like, would you like to be on? Yes, please. And then she did an interview with us right there. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So sometimes it was great when they knew they were in on the joke, because sometimes they could tell, like, you're gonna turn this into something weird and put like weird hats on me, right? And then we would do that, obviously, because they gave us the suggestion, right? Mm-hmm. So. Real fun.
I was gonna say, I remember a couple more YTV promos came into my head. Again, I don't know if you did these ones, but I'm gonna take a gamble. Like, do you remember doing one for like Spider-Man movies, for example?
Okay.
This one was a musical one, and then there's another one called
lovely.
Yeah, I'll do that one, and then there's another one called Movie Mondays. If you remember that one, does that one sound familiar?
Movie Mondays, I did a couple of spots for Movie Mondays, but I wouldn't remember what I did. I certainly didn't do musical Spider-Man. I wish I had.
Okay, so I'll do the Movie Mondays one first. There was there was one that took place in like a farmyard, and Carlos at the time, he was in a cow suit and surrounded by cows, and he was just mooing in the field. And the YTV voice guy just goes, Carlos is somehow under the misguided impression that Movie Mondays in the Zone has something to do with cows. It doesn't. Yeah. It's just great movies all summer long. No cows. We were gonna tell him. Farmer comes along, and he's like, what's with the bucket? And it's like, but really? Why spoil his fun?
Yes. I do remember that one. I think that was created by Mike Frolic, who we were co-producers on The X and the Morgan Waters show at CBC.
Wow.
And then he went on to YTV. It's such a convoluted career path, but I worked at YTV, then I went to CBC, and then I went back to YTV. And so he went back to YTV before me when we were both at CBC. And by the time I got back to YTV, he was my boss. So he was my creative director, and he shot that one, I think, a little just before I got there. So I got to see it on air.
Wow.
Yeah. Carlos was great as well. He was amazing because you could walk in, show him a script, or sometimes just tell him, here's the idea, and it's throwing to this thing. And he'd go, cool, great, got it, roll. And we'd roll, and he'd do it in one take. Yeah.
Yeah.
An amazing talent.
For sure.
Have you interviewed him? Have you chatted with him?
I would love to, but I did meet him once at like a trivia
Yeah.
night. And
cool.
What was it? Yeah, it was one of the things I remember was, what was it? One of the things that I remember getting, our table was called the Gorilla Stan Clan, based off of Gorilla Stan from The Zone. And one of the questions that he asked was, what was SpongeBob's birthday? And I managed to get that one. And I remember because, we'll talk about it a little more, I'll expand on it more, but I remember because I saw his birth date in an issue of Whoa magazine. But that's how I got that. Yeah.
Yes, Whoa magazine. Yeah.
But I've got a whole section devoted to Whoa. But there was like I wanted to do the Spider-Man thing just so you can remember, or it's like, oh, this is out there. But there was a promo for Spider-Man. They were showing 4 Spider-Man movies in April again, and they did it in song, and they just took various little clips of various like characters from the Spider-Man universe, and they were like, with 4 Spider-Man movies in April, Spider-Man isn't the only man you'll see. And then it just goes into a polka, and it says, we got Rhino Man and Goblin Man and a Twirly Baton Man too, Water Man and Fire Man and a policeman or two, a little man and a big man and a man who laughs at you, a polka dot man and a man with a cold achoo gazoon-tight. We've got an ugly man, a war man, and a man with a mullet too. So let's give a hand to Spider-Man for bringing this movie to you. And that's been stuck in my head for like almost 20 years.
It'll never go away. You're going to have it 20 years from now as well. Oh, I love that.
That's
I love
so
that.
good.
No, that feels like it could be Mike. It could also be Hilding, Nana Pragasm, who was also...
yes.
Me, Mike, and Hilding were kind of like, a triple threat of promo producing for a couple of years there as well.
It was Hilding, actually.
Was it Hilding?
It's on his Vimeo called Spider-Man Polka.
There you go. Isn't it funny?
It written down. Yeah. That's
just
wild.
the patter that you said, I'm just going, this feels like Hilding. Yeah.
Really? That's crazy.
With 4 movies in April, Spider-Man isn't the only man you'll see. Yes, we've got Rhino Man and Goblin Man and a Twirly Baton Man too. Water Man and Fire Man and a policeman or two. Hey! A little man and a big man and a man who laughs at you. A polka dot man and a man with a cold achoo gazoon-tight. We have an ugly man and a war man and a man with a mullet too. What? So let's give a hand to Spider-Man for bringing this movie to you. Spider-Man: The Return of the Green Goblin, Saturday, April 7th, and 3 hairy thumbs up.
You could tell just from, wow.
Well, you gave me like the years that it happened. I knew that it was in the Movie Mondays block, and I'm like, yeah, okay, who was there that time and would do a musical one? And Hilding was very, very prolific in terms of throwing out the musical ones. Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely his. Yeah. No, the only music I did with superheroes, I did a very short spot, which was, and now here's Wolverine with a flute up his nose. And then it was just shots of Wolverine sniffing, and we had flute noises.
Yeah. Bravissimo.
That's how high content. Yes, that's exactly right.
And now, Wolverine with a clarinet up his nose. Bravissimo!
And then I did, for Teletoon at night, I did a Gotham Saturday Night spot for Batman. Yeah, for Batman Returns, I think it was.
It was The Dark Knight.
Oh, The Dark Knight. It was The Dark Knight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, looky, it's the Batmobile. I wonder who's driving. Joker and the Batman, hero parasite. Joker and the Batman, Gotham Saturday night. Canadian non sequitur.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Joker and the Batman, fly kick punch fight. Joker and the Batman, Gotham Saturday night. The Dark Knight, next Saturday at night on Teletoon at night.
This is what I love. See, you've studied my work now.
good
You
one.
know it better than even I do, which is
Like I could just sing the song right now.
You sure could. Yeah. Yeah. But when you cut this together, are you going to put in inserts of some of these things we're talking about to give people a point of reference? I saw a few of your bits on YouTube. Yeah, you're very good. Very, very well put together.
Oh, thank you.
So that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great trip. What a great trip down memory lane.
I was going to bring up, I had a whole thing about the Joker and the Batman song because that's been an earworm since I saw it. Just Joker and the Batman, hero parasite. It's like, was that just something that you were just like, what if we just went with a little bit of country or something with this?
It was literally just, it was an homage to Stompin' Tom Connors, who had a song called Sudbury Saturday Night, which is just about getting drunk and getting into bar fights on a Saturday night in Northern Ontario.
And the girls are out to bingo and the boys are getting stinkle. We think no more of Inco on a Sudbury Saturday night. The glasses they will tinkle when our eyes begin to twinkle, and we think no more of Inco on a Sudbury Saturday night.
And so I found a piece of music again on the APM library that was adjacent to that kind of a sound.
Yeah.
And my process is very much like I'll find the piece of music I like, and after having done it so many years, I can tell, like, okay, verse, bridge, verse. And because I'm so used to working 15-second and 30-second bits, you can just tell whether it will work or not work.
Right.
So the longest part was finding the piece of music. And then once I had it, I just played on repeat again and again and again at my desk, trying to write out, here's the information I need to get out, maybe, or just tell the story of the movie, maybe. At the end, we're going to have the back plate, which tells people where to watch it. And that's it. Yeah, so that one, it was just like, okay, here's the piece of music. So the end result, the voiceover guy, Daniel P., ended up doing something like halfway between where I thought it would be, which was more Stompin' Tom, and he pulled it a little towards Johnny Cash. And we had a really nice... Because I always love to collaborate with the voiceover people, because in the end, we're all making something together, right? Sometimes the vision that I have is so strong that I'm like, it's got to go in this direction, and I'll push it. But I really, really do love it when someone else that we're working with goes, what about this idea? And does it for you, Worst comes to worst, I would always let them do theirs. And if I didn't think that it was going to work, I'd go, great, that was for you. Now do one for me. And they go, okay, I get it. How do you want it?
I'm the director
okay,
here.
This way or that way. Yeah, I'm going to pull the director here and actually make you do it the way. But I want you to be happy too. And there's nothing better than having somebody be enthusiastic about what you're working on together. When you get a flash from somebody in the booth going, ooh, how about this? How about this? Yeah. Of course we're going to do that. Eddie Glenn, again, someone you should also interview if you haven't already.
Oh, I'm trying, but he's got no contact info, but so
wonderful to work with because if he laughed at the original idea that you brought in, he would always be willing to go, what about if blah? And so sometimes what you wound up with was different than what you wrote and brought in, and you'd have to go back and re-edit something because what they gave you was actually so good that you're like, well, that's where the idea is going to go. And then you would just sell it to your creative director going, I know you approved this, and I've got that, but how about this new crazy thing that we came up with together? So bringing in the improvisation into the creative process, I think is super important, you know. And also, you know, I have to mention the mixing guys that I worked with over the years, you know, at CBC. At CBC, it was Damian Kearns, amazing, hilarious, funny guy who again would always turn it up to 11 every single time. And at YTV, Peter Yake is the guy who did most of the YTV stuff. And so through his sound design, he just built this huge library of, you know, farts and burps and whooshes and twangs and stuff like this. And yeah, Pete mixed things for me. God, when I started as just a junior producer, he was starting as a junior mixer. So, wow. And he's still there. So, wow. Yeah.
That's great.
This can be your job. This can be someone's job. Just mixing the backgrounds to amazing promos, mixing music, putting in, you know, fart noises on something. Sometimes really low in the mix so that hopefully we don't get letters.
Yep, of course.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Do you remember what the song was in the APM for Joker and the Batman? I mean, I could probably find it, but do you remember it by name?
I don't remember it by name. No. I might have the paperwork somewhere. If you bug me,
yeah,
I'll find it for you. Because I've got a drive with a lot of the archival stuff. Again, being a pack rat, I kept a lot of cue sheets and stuff like this. So it might be there. It might even be in the metadata somewhere. We'll see if I still have access to. I created a library of like go-to tunes. If I still have access to it, I can definitely tell you what it is. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
I'm wondering if Shazam or something like that can't even decipher it and find it as well. I don't think it's ever been flagged. I don't think it's ever been flagged because sometimes YouTube will go, "Oh, this is a third party. Do you have the right?" Sometimes things get pulled from international distribution, but they're okay in Canada. So I never really worry about that too much. But,
that happened to me once when I made like a video. Like when I first started making videos in like 2012, I found like an APM song that I recognized from like SpongeBob and maybe a YTV promo here or there. And then that's when it got flagged. And I was like, oh, okay, that's how it works.
Yeah. Someone does actually care about getting rights to the music that they own.
About this.
Exactly. Someone will find it. Yeah.
Well,
having done promos for so many years, I annoy anybody sitting next to me sometimes because I'll see a commercial and I go, haha, I've used that before. They're like, what? I'm like, oh, that piece of music, that polka, I've used that before.
Yeah.
They like roll their eyes. Okay. Good for you.
That happens with me and sound effects where it's like, whoa, that's the thing, they use that in like a video game from like 94. This is like from Sounds of Africa Volume 2 or something.
Yes A very, very specific passion.
For sure.
But you got to kind of have that mind too, because you always remember, oh, that's a good sound effect. I can't use it right now, but I will.
I'll find it. I'll figure it out.
I don't know if you were familiar with, who am I asking here? Of course you are. All the Big Fun movie moments.
Oh, yeah.
From
Big
YTV.
Fun movie moments.
Big Fun movie moments. Whoa, could this movie get any cooler?
So I created that series, the Big Fun Movie Moment series, and the opening sting and the closing sting were things that I mixed together really roughly from different sound effects and like horn trumpet sounds.
Yeah.
And then gave them to Pete and said, make this musical, which he did. So that was really fun. And what I loved about that one was that other producers when they would be assigned the same thing, they were not mandated to use my concept, but they did. So Movie Mondays had a long life without me, which is great.
Yeah. And let's see, I wanted to talk a little bit about Whoa magazine, and I have a little thing right here. Just
oh wow.
Yeah, I never had a subscription to Whoa, but I did go to Pizza Hut like once or twice, and I remember the commercial said they were free at Pizza Hut, so I was like, we gotta get. I used to have 2 issues, but like one of them is gone.
Okay.
I don't know where it went, but I feel like I'd be a lot better about that. But anyway, I wanted to, I remember Sponge and Stone. Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah.
There they are.
I wanted to ask you, let's see, yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about these guys and where they came from.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Sponge and Stone, they were 2 misfit best friends who lived together in a trailer park on the edge of town. And literally, they came up in a flash of inspiration. I was in a meeting. I knew this was when I was just freelancing, so I just wanted a gig writing for this magazine.
Yeah.
And we came in with a bunch of different concepts at a pre-production meeting. And I had all these really, really high concept ideas, and they weren't really landing. And people were like, okay. Like, I got a few assignments. Like, they're like, we need somebody to write something about something silly that happens on a camping trip. Marcel, you're really silly. You can write that one. But, you know, we need, like, things that are going to be in the magazine proper. So I went, well, there's this idea. All I have is the catchphrase, and there's a sponge and a stone, and they get into arguments, and at the end of every episode, the sponge says, this sucks, and the stone says, this rocks. And that literally was the pitch. That made everybody at the table laugh, going, that's the dumbest idea. We love it. Okay, so write something. And then I chatted with an artist, one of the graphic designers, Chris Zammit, who was at YTV, and I said, I had this idea. Can you design these characters? So he designed the basic overall look of them, and I wrote a couple of the first episodes, first strips, and then another artist, Steve Manali, took over to do the actual, the monthly, or I think it was 3 or 4 times a year that the magazine came out, maybe six times a year, to do the actual breakdowns. And it just went from there. Yeah. So it was literally just an offhanded comment made in a boardroom while I was panicked going, I need to get work. Someone said, you know what, there's something there. But they loved the idea of it being like, oh, this is a sponge and a stone. They're inanimate objects, but they're alive in this, and they live in a human world. So there's enough comedy there. Wow.
I liked them quite a bit. That's crazy, but
I'm so glad. I pitched it many times as a TV series and never got any traction.
Wow. Yeah, I was about to ask, but yeah, I feel like anything, if a sponge could work as a TV series, who says a sponge and a stone can't?
Well, sometimes people would say to me, the feedback from some producers were like, oh, sponge, you mean like SpongeBob? Oh, we can't do another show with a sponge in it. And I was like, well, okay, so how many shows are there with rabbits? How many shows are there with mice? How many shows are there with
dogs?
Bears? Dogs. Right? There's more than one.
Yeah.
So people, it was a really tough sell. Although people would be like, well, you got the comic strip. But I'm like, but I want more. I think it could go further than this.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things, man. Yeah. It was a comic strip. That's a success anyway. And you remember it. So once again,
it's immortalized somewhere. And my friend, the one from Saskatchewan that we archive stuff, he's got a whole Whoa magazine blog where he's archived all the stuff that he can find from various issues throughout the years. I'll link you to it too. Yeah.
Please. I think I may have stumbled across it at one point, because I remember going, wow, there's somebody specifically loved Whoa magazine. But please do link me up. That's great. I'd love to see it, because I don't have all of the strips, I don't think.
He's got, it's not every single thing, but it does cover quite a bit. And yeah, I did scan this one and sent it over to him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let them contact me, and I'll see if I can fill in any holes.
Will do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask, did you have anything to do with Sid the Pickle here?
I wrote some of the Sid the Pickle responses. Yeah. Yeah. They would just rotate the assignment. So some months you'd get to be Sid the Pickle, and other months it was somebody else. But I did get to do a couple of them. Yeah. Yeah. The advice column.
This one always got me, where it says, Dear Sid, I'm shorter than all the girls in my class. How do they get them to stop teasing me about it? From Claude. Dear Claude, get taller.
Now that sounds suspiciously like something I might have written, because that is absolutely true. I was teased about my height as a kid by the girls in class, and I have a best friend named Claude.
No way. You're not making this up. You can't be making this up.
As you tell stories and we talk, and there are clues that tell me, well, that smells like it could be mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Claude is not a common name.
Yeah. Kind of old-fashioned.
It seems specific. Yeah. So I think that's probably mine.
That's so weird. Okay, I'll read one more of these where it says, Dear Sid, what would happen if everybody burped at the same time? From Luke, L-U-C. Semi-intelligent Luke. That's what the dinosaurs asked themselves. So they organized the first and only annual Let's All Burp at the Same Time Day. Where are the dinosaurs now, Luke? Say it with me. Extinct. That's right. 6 billion burps at the same time was deadly.
Yeah. That sounds
you think
like
that
mine.
Was you?
That sounds like me. That sounds like me.
Okay. One more. This one really caught my eye. Dear Sid, what did you do on your spring break? From Claire. Let's see. First, I realized I was a pickle stuck in a jar, so I don't get a spring break. Then I floated around aimlessly until suddenly I remembered I was still a pickle in a jar, so I don't get a spring break. Then I remembered all the poor pickles in Africa who don't have jars, and I felt very fortunate. Not. That one's just...
That sounds like me. I think I did that one. I think I did that whole month. Yes.
Yeah, you might have, yeah.
Again, because, it just feels like my patter. It does feel like my style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I never printed out this magazine subscription thing. I guess I could have, but I didn't want to, destroy this thing. I never want to do that with magazines.
I hear you. Yeah, I used to have a subscription to something called Dynamite Magazine in the 80s, and same thing. I was very clear. I tried to keep them all pristine, but not as pristine as I thought, because I found a bunch of them in storage a couple of years ago and looked through them, and I was like, oh my God, I did cut these up, or someone did. Maybe my brother did after I left the house or something. Who knows? But they weren't kept as mint as I would have wanted.
Mm-hmm. At least they're not totally gone, I guess.
They're not. Exactly right.
So let's see. I also wanted to delve on a little bit of stuff that you've done in anime, like you wrote for Metabots, and you also voiced a character in Beyblade, which seems to be your only anime role from what I could find. So what was that like? Because, you do mostly like live action and other things like that, but what was doing an anime like for you specifically?
It was, I loved it, and I tried for a long time to sort of break into doing cartoon voice work, but it's very competitive, and there are amazingly talented people in this city and country that can do so many voices that sometimes, there's a guy named Christian Potenza who does so many voices that, often people would say, well, we hired Christian, so he's just going to do all the voices. So we actually won't need any other actors whatsoever. So you go, oh, Christian. But I was so happy to be able to get a chance to just try out doing an anime. And the director was a very well-known director, Deborah Toffin, who really pushed me real hard in the sessions, because if you've seen the character, he doesn't resemble me at all. He's this big, round German guy, and he's angry all the time. And I just remember my voice being so raw after the sessions, because she'd be like, that's good, but you got more. He's bigger than that. He's angrier. He's younger. He's fighting. We want to hear that he's fighting. You know? So there was constant feedback coming from the booth. Kind of. But she was also like, you can do this, you know? And yeah, I remember at one point I just said, I need to get a little bit more comfortable. I need to get more physical. So I took off my shirt, just was in a t-shirt. I took off my socks and shoes and just sort of grounded myself to the floor there, and then just went wild in the studio. And that's what it needed, right? Because you're a Beyblade player, right? You got to be physical. So I really had to be very, very method in that sense of just, okay, well, let me really work up a sweat here and do this kind of stuff.
My efforts won't fail me, huh? Nice saying. Now just show me. Show me how hard you've worked for this. Show me the results of your training.
I don't take orders from you. I'll show you because I want to.
Good. Come get me. Special move. Steel darkness.
What was also fun in that, and I maybe came in, Klaus was only, I think, in one season. I came in for maybe 5 or 6 different record sessions. And in some of them, I would also do other ancillary characters. So background noises from some of the fans in the stands going, oh my God, can you believe it? You know, things like this. So, and the challenge was, she's like, okay, now you have to sound like a different character. You've been yelling for an hour. Now pull it back. And this is whispers. And this is this kind of a voice. And I want you to be more, you know, more nasal, or bring it down to your chest, or like constant feedback and direction. Is fun for me. Not that I always get what the director is asking for, but I'm so used to improvising that it keeps you on your toes anyway, to just have someone throwing things at you and you're just trying to do it the whole time. It was very much how I like to work. Is always being surprised at any given moment. It still feels new. I'm not getting bored because I'm so present, right? So it was a good, fun experience. I would have loved to have done a lot more of the work, but it's just one of those things. Maybe the projects that she went on to work on didn't need somebody of my range, or I changed agents a couple of times as well too. So everybody, you know, has a relationship, and therefore they have a relationship with each other's clients, and that's how you get work. It's word of mouth, and it's, you know, being in the same circles. And you know, I had other things going on too. So sometimes you're like, well, I want to do that kind of stuff, but I'm busy doing this. So you don't get to do it all, but maybe you get to do a little bit of sample platter of things that you like. So it was real fun. I really did enjoy doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've had other people reach out to me about it as well too, going, hi, I'm talking to all the anime actors who worked on this show in Canada. And you're like, oh, wow, well, here I am. What do you want to know? You know, and it's just, what was it like? So it's great to be able to tell people, how could I do that? Well, geez, I don't even know how I wound up doing it. So the good news is there's 1,000 different ways it might end up happening for you. First step is get voice lessons. Second step, get an agent, get a voice demo. And that's it. You've got as much chance as anybody else. You know, it's a lottery.
You're on the same level as everybody.
It really is a lottery. Just get that training and just have an open mind and be willing to meet people and throw yourself out of your comfort zone and roll with it. Yeah. Yeah.
I need to do that more myself, actually. I'm on. I need to get to step 2 on that.
Yes.
Good eventually. I also noticed that you wrote for Ants in Your Pants, which, personally speaking, that was one of my earliest memories in life. So I gotta thank you for your work on Ants in Your Pants.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing because no one ever remembers that one. And it was a fun little show. Yeah.
It was great, man.
I've never had anybody remember that one. Yeah.
It was just like, again, me, my brother, my mom, we all enjoyed Ants in Your Pants. I know you didn't write the songs that came in, but yeah, just that entire show was great.
Yeah. That one was a real, again, talk about collaborating. It was a little bit of you provide this and I'll provide this. You know, I would write basically some of the situations. Some of the dialogue would get approved. Some of it would get improvised while they were shooting. But Marty Stelnick, who was the main puppeteer, would write basically all of the music because he was just a great lyricist. I'm trying. For sure. It's been so long since I thought about the show too. Oftentimes they would come to us and go, "Listen, we need to do an episode about being scared, or an episode about your favorite food." Like, it was very much like you'd be given the assignment of what it should hit, and there you go. But it was a very simple one to write for. I remember the scripts being really, really, really short because a lot of it came together in the edit and in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. But that's the kind of stuff that someone who wrote for kids TV wants to have happen. Like, it's wonderful to be talking to somebody who was the age that, you know, we were writing for at the time, all growing up and still remembering it, having fond memories of it.
Yep, still sticks with me, still sticks with my mother who watched it with me, and it's like, oh yeah, Ants in Your Pants. That was such a great little show.
Now, did you watch the Fuzzpaws as well?
That was also one of my earliest memories. Like, I didn't understand much of what was going on because, again, by the time I got older, they were gone. But I remember one of them that had, when I was a little kid, I remember there was a little red guy with French fry hair, and that was one guy that stuck out to me. And I got friends who love the Fuzzpaws. But yeah, if you got any stories about the Fuzzpaws.
That was Fez Fuzzpaw.
Fuzzpaw.
We had a couple of different iterations of the Fuzzpaws. Of course, the Fuzzpaws were the in-house, I think it was like the morning zone block. What did they used to call it? I think
it was called like the breakfast zone.
There was breakfast zone, and then there was
YTV
it might have been called the Treehouse or YTV Junior.
Yeah, it was called the Treehouse and then YTV Junior.
Yeah, so they were basically in with the PJs, PJ Krista and PJ Katie and PJ Phil and stuff like this, sort of, you know, improvising and interacting with them. So that was a couple of different puppeteers. There was Marty Stelnick, there was Todd Dolderson, there was Ali Eisner, who would create these characters, and you would just sometimes just hang out in the room with them, like not having conversations at all with the puppeteers, but having conversations with the puppets. And that's how I would get to know the puppets. Like the cat, this little mangy cat, was Archie Fuzzpaw, and I gravitated so hard to him. So we got hired to write actually a pilot that never went to air for a show called The Fuzzpaws, or maybe it was just called Fuzzpaws. That was meant to be, it was such a different show. It had a real Muppet Show vibe to it, and was just the puppets living in their land and having all kinds of adventures. The episode I wrote, the pilot, which we did shoot, was about this evil bee, Bartholomew Bee, making seeding the clouds with seeds that would launch cows down onto the earth. So he just rained cows upon everyone, a cowpocalypse. And that was so much fun to write and do. But ultimately, they didn't go for that concept because it was, I think, maybe too weird and too strange.
Too weird?
So they pulled it back. Yeah, oddly enough, right? YTV. They pulled it back. I think they wanted to make it more preschool, and definitely more preschool, not high concept or too silly. And so they pulled it back, and the Fuzzpaws that you might have watched had a much more easygoing, quiet feel to it, and not about Somebody told me one time with a promo that they wouldn't put to air. They're like, no. This is for Treehouse TV. We can't scare the kids. It was about a Christmas tree being cut down, and I had made it way too weird for Treehouse TV. So I was like, oh, okay, I have to remember I'm talking to a 3-year-old, not a 6-year-old who's got a zany sense of humor, right? So
yeah.
Know your audience. Yeah. So that was fun. Yeah, no, I loved working with the Fuzzpaws. Yeah, I loved it.
That's great.
That's one of the things that got me into wanting to work for YTV was I was in university watching YTV in the afternoon, unironically, because I loved watching. I knew that the hits in the zone were all improvised, and the puppets were making me laugh because they were getting away with saying stuff that was so sarcastic, but they get away with it because they're a puppet, right?
Right.
So
they're cute.
Fun. That really appealed to me. So I was a bit starstruck several years later by walking into the YTV studios going, where have I wound up here? Because I have a teaching degree to teach high school, and here I am talking to felt. So either I've made a horrible mistake or I'm doing something right.
Turned out to be the latter.
I think the latter. I'm glad you agree.
There was, I remember stumbling upon a video on YouTube where there was like I think again, this is probably something that was just made for the YTV staff, but do you recall something like there was one of the Fuzzpaws and he was like attacking Kermit the Frog to the tune of Rainbow Connection? This is like a real thing.
No, I don't remember that. This went to air?
No. I think this was just like a thing they made for themselves, but a friend of mine linked me to it. And I was like, have you seen this? I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's like one of the Fuzzpaws is like attacking Kermit in like a bar as Rainbow Connection is playing in the background.
Yes. I mean, that could have been the Fuzzpaws. It could have been the Grogs who were before the Fuzzpaws. Yeah.
One of those guys.
That was one of the things I had seen on air, actually, was the episode where the Grogs take over YTV. Like the whole thing was about
this,
Warren Grog taking over YTV. And I just remember, well, this is really brilliant and silly and fun. Very, very low, like low-key Muppet Show vibe, like early days Henson. You know, it could go off the rails at any moment and get really, really weird. I loved that so much. Yeah. So it really was the right place for me to walk into. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's see. There's a couple of because I also know you did some Adult Swim Canada stuff. First thing I wanted to know, who is the Adult Swim Canada announcer? Like, do you know?
Yes, that is Dave Pender. Dave Pender is his showbiz name, and what he's known for. But he's been working for years, doing all kinds of voiceover work for everything. An amazing career. A bit of an older gentleman. He's, he must be in his late 80s.
Late 80s?
Oh, what? Yeah, still working because he loves it. Yeah.
No way.
Are you all caught up on Harley Quinn? If you've missed a single episode of the extroverted exploits of Joker's ex-psychiatrist ex-girlfriend...
All right, ladies, I have a big surprise.
Own it, girl!
You've just run out of excuses. Watch Harley Quinn on Adult Swim or stream the latest season anytime on the new Global TV app.
Yeah, so he auditioned, like a lot of other people, to try and be the voice of YTV. Not YTV, I'm sorry, of Adult Swim. And I just gravitated to his voice because he just was able to hit that tone, which was very showbiz, you know?
Yeah.
And really like old school. He could say something in a way that was just so unironic or ironic based on what you were written. And yeah, he had a great sense of humor and would often improvise stuff as well in the studio that might or might not work, but at least he was really, really, engaged and having fun with it. Oh, I loved working with him. He was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that the dude was like in his late 80s. He sounded he sounds so like you know, I don't want to profile or anything, but he sounds so like up and chipper, and he just sounds like a dude, just a regular average dude on the street.
Kind of a timeless, like almost a game show announcer kind of a voice, just a real classic sound to him. Yeah. And of course he could do other kinds of voices as well, but that's where we would always direct him to bring it in there. And with Adult Swim, it was always fun because we'd always be like, he always wanted to put a lot of energy and intention behind what he was saying. And we'd always be like, pull back, because Adult Swim is a little bit more, you know,
on the nose, tongue in cheek.
Let's be chill here. And so we would always go, he'd go, but the line is so funny, I should say it in a funny way. We're like, that's what you'd think. We want you to actually just throw it away. So it was really funny sometimes, the lines he would give that wouldn't work, but they would be hilarious. But we need to get this approved. And I know I'm going to get the note that, we need to bring it into the brand voice, which is a little bit more relaxed and chill. You're saying sarcastic things without really overdoing it, right? Because the audience is smart. They get it. They know you're being facetious, or they know there's subtext. You know, don't sell it. Don't over-tip it, right? So, yeah. But we would get him there. No, he was great. Dave Pender. Dave Pender is the man's name.
Dave Pender. That's great. Yeah, I did like, because it's always, because Adult Swim's like American equivalent doesn't have an announcer, and I know some people might see that as a bit controversial, but I do like the performance. Like, I remember one promo where it was just talking about like, oh, we got this stuff on Stack TV and all these shows that you wanted, and he just goes at the end, you talked, we listened, eventually.
It finally happened. We read your emails, we saw your tweets, and we listened to your voicemails. So, after careful consideration, we've decided to put an entire back catalog of all your favorite Adult Swim shows on Stack TV. You talked, we listened, eventually.
Something like that. It's like, oh, you think you're funny.
I can hear him doing that one. Yeah, that was a bit of an experiment. Adult Swim Canada was the first, I think to this day, the only Adult Swim franchise outside of America. So
there's a few in like Europe or something, but
is there? Okay,
this is the first 24/7 channel.
They may be now, but I know at the time we were the only one, and they were really watching us, and had a lot of thoughts and feelings, and they were pretty happy with what we did. And that was one of the discussions, was like, well, we don't have an announcer, and we were like, we're gonna try, because we have before with Teletoon at Night being all the Adult Swim stuff. So now we're gonna do it. Trust us. So sometimes it would be half and half. Sometimes a lot of the promos, if they didn't need it, we wouldn't put it on. Sometimes we would just be repurposing the spots coming in from the US. If it was a new show, depending who it was, all the Tim and Eric stuff, they were really clear about us using their creative. So you couldn't really... Sometimes we would slap on Dave's voice just on the backplate, just on the end, telling you the name of the show and the time. And that could be okay. But like I created spots for Primal, and that's the you watch Primal, and that one was like, there shouldn't be a voiceover on this one.
No words.
Is just about watching this beautiful animation, right? So yeah. So you'd but then of course the Rick and Morty stuff, I'm going to put Dave's voice all over that. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like it fits there. Yeah, totally. What was I? So there was also, and you also made a couple of bumpers and stuff, and I remember one of the ones on your demo reel.
Lots of bumps.
The one that always gets me is the one with the flute recorder, because, it's like, this is a flute, this is a recorder.
This kind of flute is not a recorder.
Oh, recorder. Flute, recorder. Flute, recorder.
Flute, recorder.
This is a flute. This is a recorder. This kind of flute is also a recorder. Hey! This is a flute. This is a recorder. What? This kind of flute is not a recorder. No! Flute, recorder. Flute, recorder. Yeah. Flute, recorder. No! Flute, recorder.
It sounds like something I could have seen on the American one. And it's just stuck in my head because I never called it a flute Or now I know.
Well,
like the drink.
Exactly. No, I loved that one. And I don't know to this day whether that one got air in the U.S. or not. But we would every month put together a bunch of Canadian bumps and send them to the U.S. for approval. They could basically turn some of them down and go, you can't air that one. It's not in the brand voice. And they would have specific notes. They were pretty clear with their notes about why it didn't work. Mm-hmm. And then they would go, okay, here's the approved ones that you can air, but they'll only air in Canada. They were allowing us to do that. But every so often, the guy down there, I never dealt with him specifically, but his name was Cahill. I remember sometimes if he'd deny spots, I'd just go, Cahill. He would every so often go, oh, I love this one, and we'll air this one in the U.S. So one of our editors got one of his approved one time, and it was just, I wish I remembered it properly, but it was basically, he made it the whole screen look like he was using MS Paint. It was really creative anyway, but the guy loved it and was like, oh yeah, we're airing that one for sure. Yeah. So a couple of mine, one of mine got turned down. It was the one about the squirrel proverb. Mm-hmm. It was basically like, sometimes you have to fight, but if you have to fight, make sure you go for the nuts. And then it was like squirrel proverb. And he didn't like that one. He was like, that's goofy. He turned it into Genghis Khan. And so that's the one that we aired officially. But if you go to my YouTube channel, I air the producer's cut, which is squirrel proverb. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
I also liked the Super Dave one you did, and you put like a little thing at the bottom where it's like, yeah, it's on at 9 a.m. That's not a typo. That's insane. And yeah, that's where I first started watching Super Dave.
There you go.
Thanks for that.
I mean, thanks for reading the small print. I had a hell of a time convincing people, no, this works. Trust us. Someone will read this. You've vindicated me.
And I have it in standard definition, so I was like, I really had to squint. It's like, what does that say?
I love it. But that's ideally what we wanted to have happen, was someone gets a copy of it and just pauses it so they can read it. That's the point, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is this saying? And we all acknowledged it internally too, going, this show was airing when? Every day at 9 a.m., huh? Okay. Well, let's lean into it. Let's lean into it and be real clear. We know it's ridiculous. But yeah. That was such a great show too. I loved that show.
Oh yeah.
That was fun to go through and just find all the times he gets ridiculously maimed. It was great.
Mm-hmm. And I remember the backing music you used. I heard in a Kung Fu Panda 3 promo you did as well. It was like, I recognize those blaring horns.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I did use it in a Kung Fu Panda promo.
Big Fun Movies presents Kung Fu Panda 3, Sunday at 6 on YTV.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Nice.
Man, that's crazy.
Someone's watching. Who watches the watcher? Malik does.
I'm keeping these channels alive, honestly. It's like I'm the one who still has the cable, and I'm like, okay, I'm just keeping it up and seeing. It's like, what are you guys doing now, and blah blah blah. But
thank you for your service.
That least I can do. But
now the T-shirt you got, actually, I wanted to ask you, is that a RetroKid? One of the RetroKid ones?
This is actually not a RetroKid one. I know
vintage.
That they've been showing those ones. Not even vintage. Okay. One time when I was at a convention at Anime North in Toronto in 2018, they had Bionics shirts, like, Bionics, the anime block.
Wow.
And they had limited edition, 150 were being made, and I bought the first one, and they also had these shirts as well. So I was just like, I gotta buy one.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's close by. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can show you this. Remember this guy?
Whoa. Oh, of course I do. One of my earliest things ever into my brain. The three-eyed alien.
Yeah. Three-eyed alien. Yeah. I'm going to blank on his name. I think it's Triploid.
He's got a name? Triploid?
Triploid.
I know some of them have names, but I didn't know that Triploid was that one's name.
Yeah. Triploid. There was Schnozcopter.
Schnozcopter, I know that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those are the only ones that I'm remembering right now. Yeah.
I know the alien has a name. The fly has a name. I don't know if like some of the later ones in like the mid 2000s, like there was like a laughing one, a big fuzzy orange one that was green and had a bunch of eyes. I don't know if those guys have names.
Yeah, every year that was the fun. Again, that was I mentioned his name earlier. Vince and his team would come up with all these guys. Sometimes they'd go to out of house, get help from out of house studios that would pitch ideas and stuff. Yeah, that was a blast. Actually, every year we would do like a roundup. We would just sit for like 2 weeks and we would just pitch ideas for these bumpers. And it was a blast. One of them actually won a BDA award, one that I wrote, which was called Crows. And it was just crows on a line. That's what I wrote originally, just crows on a line telling each other a knock-knock joke. Mm-hmm. And I had them actually speaking English. Like, I had an actual joke. And Vince took that concept and ran with it and actually made them talk in just, like, weird gibberish noises.
Yeah.
And at the end, one of them farts and he falls off kind of thing. And
like the coming up next bumper, right?
Coming up next bumper. That was it.
Yeah.
And I was like...
Yeah.
Initially, I was a little like, oh, they took out the joke that I wrote and just took the concept. But that's okay. Like, we're collaborating. But it ended up winning, I think it was gold in its category. Wow. So I'm like, well, there you go. When you collaborate and keep an open mind, great things happen when everybody brings a little bit to it together. So, it was
that is the one where, like, the bird farts and then the other two keel over, right?
That's right. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
I remember there was an old promo, like, someone uploaded, and it was just the coming up next. And I remember Eddie Glenn does his thing coming up next, like, "Are you being served is coming up next," followed by "keeping up appearances at 12:30" or something like that.
"Are you being served" is coming up next, followed by "keeping up appearances at 12:30.
But wow.
Yeah. Those are fun voice sessions. Yeah, just hanging in. Just like we'd have like 40 of them to read in one day, and we would just keep each other entertained, laughing, and you got to keep his energy up, right? So
yeah,
great guy.
And he's still got it. I really want to speak to that guy. If you could throw in a good word for me, because I've tried to look. He doesn't have any contact info or anything, but I'd love to speak with him.
I will drop him a note on your behalf and see if he's interested in doing anything like that. I bet he would be, but we'll see. I can't speak for him, but
he's done a few. Yep. Like, he did one very recently, and I always ask, like, the people where it's like, how did you get in contact with him? And they're like, I can't say. So I
could tell you, but then I'll have to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like my last shot here.
No, I'm totally willing to be the go-between to ask him if he's interested in doing it, and then we can talk about it for sure.
Totally.
Because it sounds like a no-brainer that you should interview him. I mean, he really has been the voice of YTV. I think it's a world record at this point. It's probably 30 years.
He's been around since like 98, like 25, 26.
At least 98.
Yeah.
At least 98. Yeah. So 25. But 25, I think when he was rounding the corner of his 20th anniversary, he was worried because he's like, I'm probably going to lose this job because everything changes. But he goes, I hope I can do 20. 20's the thing. He goes, and he knew the other actor. He goes, this guy did this for like 21 years, so like I'd like to match it, but he's definitely surpassed it. I think it's probably a world record for how long someone has been a network voice.
Yeah, there was like a couple years ago, there were maybe a few promos where it was done in by like a stand-in or something, and some promos were like half of Eddie Glenn and half the other person, but they seem to be sticking with Eddie Glenn, and I'm like, for all the faults and things that YTV has done over the years, at the very least, Eddie Glenn is still there and is still doing his thing to the best of his ability.
He would be chuffed to hear that, and that's the no lies detected. That is, I think, I agree as well, because it's something that generations of people have heard, right? Kids who then had kids, who everybody knows the voice. And if you listen carefully to radio ads or even TV ads, you can hear his voice. He works.
Oh yeah.
So
Kellogg's,
you can always identify it. You got it.
It's like there he is. Yeah. It's a very hard voice to miss. But I also wanted to ask, like, last few questions. What is an average day for you like now? Like, do you still do promos? You said that you stopped doing YTV promos, but yeah, what's an average day now?
Average day now, I'm a man about town, man for hire. I no longer work at Corus Entertainment. There's been a big shakeup there in all of the entertainment industry in Canada. Actually, a lot of things are shrinking. But I had a really good run and really enjoyed it. Now I'm just I'm writing more stuff. I'm halfway through my first novel. I've done 3 books of short stories. I've got another book of short stories probably coming as well. So I'll just keep on keeping on with those projects. Also still doing improv and teaching improv as well in Toronto. Auditioning for stuff, and who knows where I'll wind up next.
Yeah, I think you'll be all right.
I certainly didn't expect to have the career that I've had, and having a nice conversation like this with you this afternoon has reminded me, going, hey man, look back at everything that's happened over how many,
and see what,
over how many years, which again, unplanned, which again, it just is a testament, I think, to this the spirit of just improvising and going with what's in front of you, and making it happen day by day with no real plan. Things I like doing. I got to do a little bit of everything that I like to do. Yeah.
For sure. And last question. Do you have? And I know you've already asked me a few, but any other questions for me? Like that you wanted to ask?
No, I mean they've I asked you about the T-shirt. I was curious as to the vintage, the story behind the T-shirt, the legacy of the T-shirt. It was fun actually seeing the excitement over the vintage T-shirts that RetroKid released over the last couple of years. I got to shoot a couple of promos for those with the newer PJs, Spencer and then Suki, I think. Tyra, that's right. Yeah, in studio with PJ Phil. That was a really fun thing to merge those worlds together to go, first megastar PJ meeting the current, generation of them, and they were thrilled to bits to meet him and hang out with him.
Remember YTV in the 90s? It's a blast from the past! The YTV by RetroKid Keep It Weird collection has officially launched.
Now you can wrap your inner child in classic outerwear.
Throwback threads? Tell me more, voice guy.
You can visit YTV.com Keep It Weird for a chance to win retro gear for your family. You can't go back to the 90s.
But you can dress like you did.
PJ Phil! Hey, PJ Phil! Can you sign my screen? And why am I in here?
He was there with them all afternoon in the zone as well too, and I know he had a great time too. It was a real, wow, and seeing him again was real fun too, because we're like, you're still here,
I've seen him at a few conventions, and he's like, how do you know who I am? Aren't you too young to be knowing all this stuff? It was like,
you should be.
Basically what I'm just telling you right now, where it's like, yeah, I just know all this stuff. It just piques my interest in things like that.
I've just kind of absorbed it.
I'm just a history buff. I absorb everything. But
that's what happens. Yeah, when you find something to nerd out on, it just, you absorb it. You find it. It's wonderful.
For sure.
It's great. I'm glad you're doing it.
And last question I forgot. What is your favorite food? I always ask my guests these questions, and I always want to see what is their favorite food.
I mean, I am a foodie, and I will say I'll go with what came to mind first when you asked me this, and Thai food.
Thai food. Just
food.
Anything specific?
No, sometimes Thai food can be really bland, but there's a really great place that we go to called Sukhothai here in Toronto that we always order from. And it's just amazing, nice and spicy. A little chicken pad thai. You get all the right amount of flavor and heat in there. I always I know that this is nice and flavorful when my nose just lights up. I feel like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I love it. I love that. Yeah. Chicken pad thai. Chicken pad thai, Alex, for $500.
Oh, of course. Maybe if I'm in the area, I'll give that a look.
Highly recommended. Highly recommended. Yeah.
Good. Hey there, folks. Malik from the future here, and stupid me forgot to plug Marcel's socials. So if you want to check out more of him, he's on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the username ShortWeird, and you can check out more info on some of his books at books2read.com/shortweird, and that's 2 as in the number 2. Alrighty, back to the show. So I'll just say goodbye to the audience listening for now, and I'll just say that, for those listening at home, just thanks so much for listening. And yeah, Marcel, you've been a great guest. It has been an honor. Thank you for lowering your standards to speak with me. And
not at all.
Yeah, for everybody at home, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time, whenever that may be. Bye-bye.